Welcome to Tell Us Your Story, the podcast that tells the diverse stories of businesses, leaders, and influencers throughout Northern California. Our mission is to ignite inspiration, foster education, and bring our community together. Join us as we unravel the path to achievement, discovering how these remarkable businesses and leaders navigated obstacles, conquered hardships, and transformed failures into success.
In this week's episode, we sat down with Danny O'Neill. He's the owner of Kinetic Ink and the founder and chairman of the board of Warfighter Overwatch. He has an absolutely amazing story, and more importantly, he is giving back to our veteran and our first responder community in such a meaningful way. I could go through all of the different lessons that you're going to learn through this episode, but there's too many to count. Danny is not only an incredibly fascinating individual, he's a true American hero, and he's an absolute badass. Stay motivated, stay inspired, and enjoy this conversation with Danny O'Neill.
So I was born in Stockton in 1982. That's where my dad is from. And I moved a lot when I was a kid. I went to at least 6 different high schools. And so I never had like a place that was my home. Like, oh, this is my childhood home. I don't have one of those.
So was it just you and your dad? Was mom there?
So my dad has 7 daughters. I'm his only son. My mom has 2 sons that she had from a previous marriage. And then I only have one that's my full-blooded sibling. So, and then I have several step siblings as well.
Wow,
That's
so
a lot of children. Was that in one household, or this is
never all in the same household?
Okay.
But there was many of us in a household at one time, and it was a little chaotic to say the least. Yeah.
So before we get to the high school years or the middle school years, would you say you grew up wealthy, grew up poor, somewhere in between?
Poor.
Yeah, I was gonna say, with that many kids, that's a lot of kids to take care of.
A lot of kids. My mom. So my dad's always been a hustler. He's always worked hard, and he's just that blue collar kind of guy. He served in Vietnam. He's a veteran, and when he came back, he had a multitude of jobs. I think that had a lot to do with his personality. It was hard for him sometimes to get along with people or not show his emotion. And he always blamed it on being Italian. So he's Irish and Italian, and my mom's Mexican, right? So I had this very deep cultural roots, things like that. It is. It's a little nuts on both sides for various reasons.
Every holiday, then.
All of them. Everybody's Irish on St. Patty's Day. Cinco de Drinko is another one people like to celebrate. I get to celebrate all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. So he was, my dad was a very stern man. I'm his only son, so he has 7 daughters and me. And I think that was part of the reason my life kind of went the way it did. But because I lived with my mom in those early years when they split up, I had a lot of trauma. My mom was a drug addict after that, and it created a lot of issues that I didn't, first off, know where they came from or why I was behaving the way I was. And my dad did not like a lack of discipline or things like that. So
is it fair to say then you're growing up in 2 different worlds? One is drug addict. You're growing up in that environment.
Yeah, chaos.
Probably not a lot of rules, not a lot of do what you want. Then you go see dad, and dad has very strict rules.
Correct.
So were you, even though you were going through that trauma, would you prefer to be at mom's not knowing any better that you had more freedom? Or did you like going to dad's in the younger years?
So I didn't see my dad for a couple years when they first split up, and that was really tough. I wanted my dad there, but I didn't really know him, right? I just knew, there was this guy who I used to see all the time. He's gone now.
And what age is this?
So they split up when I was 2, right after my little sister was born. And then I didn't see him again till I think I was around 5. And so because of everything that was happening in my mom's house, I wasn't getting like love, attention, things like that. My mom was more focused on getting high than being able to take care of me and my siblings. So at the time with my mom, I had my 2 brothers and my little sister and myself. So for 1 year, we lived without electricity. And then the next year following that, we lived in my aunt's garage and we slept sideways across the mattress in her, in the garage, and my mom and her whatever boyfriend or whatever was there would be sleeping in the other bed. And that was in the Strawberry Manors over in Sacramento. So we lived like in Del Paso Heights, over in the north side is where I lived over there. Yeah.
So very poor.
Extreme poverty. Yeah. Like, so we had food stamps and she would sell those for drugs. Right. So we were starving. When my dad got custody of us, I was around 8 years old, and my little sister and I, like, our toes were getting ready to fall off because we were so malnourished. We were dying.
were you just you as a child? So outside of what your parents were doing, how were you? Were you kind of like trying to take care of your siblings? Were you just on your own? Like,
so I had 2 older brothers in my mom's house. So I kind of looked to them, but my oldest brother was abusive as well. And then the middle brother was too, just because if you're abused, that's what you know and what you do. So that was tough. I think I tried to protect my little sister from a lot of that. I definitely became a protector because of the things that happened when I was a kid. Yeah. But at the time, I don't know if that's what my role was when I was really young, because I was just one of the younger, I was one of the littles, you know? Yeah. And so I just kind of did what I was told for the most part. And then at some point I didn't. I was like, I'm not going to let people get hurt in front of me anymore. And I was willing to physically interact with people to like try to protect other people. And that caused a lot of problems in my life too, though, right? Because I was willing to like choose violence, or I would fight with people because that's what I had seen growing up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So going into your middle school and then early high school years, were you academic? Were you in trouble?
Trouble.
The smile that just came over your face as you thought back.
Class clown. I joked around in school. I didn't take it very serious. Intelligent, but bored. So I wasn't challenged enough. So I felt like this wasn't worth my time. And then sports gave me that outlet. So I had to be academically available to be able to participate in sports. So I would, in the beginning of the school year, like I would excel. And then after that, it would go from honor roll to skipping school and not showing up, right? And then getting back on track so that I could be eligible to play again.
And what sports were you playing?
Football and baseball.
Football and baseball. So would you say, as we get through your story, would that the first real view into like leadership and team?
Thrived on it. Chased that. I wanted the ball. It didn't matter what we were playing. Like I wanted, if it was the bottom of the ninth, 2 outs, I wanted to be the guy up or the guy pitching, right? Or, you know, specifically with football, because I think that's where my passion was more. I was the quarterback. I played defense and free safety, but when you get the ball every single play, like you're in control, it feels like it's all on your shoulders, which I liked because everything in my life had kind of been chaos, and there I felt like I had control, right? And so I love that.
And what about the team part of it?
Oh, so that felt like the family that I didn't have, right? The support and the encouragement from the other people. I was missing that in my life, but I had it there.
Yeah, and so then as you're going through high school, you're jumping high schools, moving, so you have to start over every time you get to a new school. Did you have a dream outside of sports? Did you have passions outside of sports?
Or a plan?
I had no plan. My grades weren't great. So I'm a screw up, right? I get in trouble in class a lot. I get suspended. I get in fights. And my dad was tired of my crap, right? Because he's used to this and I'm not learning my lesson. I'm continuing to make the same mistakes over and over. So eventually he kicks me out and says, go live with your mom. If that's the person you want to be, if that's the behavior you want to exhibit, then go live with the people who live like that.
And how old are you at that time?
16.
Okay, at 16, let me back up a little bit. So trying to see the environment. So you're getting in fights, you're getting in trouble. Are you part of any type of gang? Is there a crew that's running around? Or are you just one of those ones that's looking, biggest guy, I'm taking him out?
I got a couple of buddies that were really close, and we would do dumb stuff together. At first it was just kid stuff, right? And then eventually it got, more out of control. We're, doing drugs, smoking pot and skipping school and drinking alcohol, drinking and driving, doing things that are, extremely risky behavior and not really caring, because I thought my life was trash and I was always going to be that way. Like everything, the way I lived when I lived with my mom, I thought that's who I was at my core. Like I'm always going to be like this.
You didn't know any better.
I didn't.
All right. So you go back to mom at 16. So paint that picture for it.
So my mom is essentially a crackhead at this point. She is not a functioning human being. Everything is provided by the government for her life, and she steals other stuff, whether it's shoplifting or, doing some sort of fraud, writing stolen checks, you name it, she's done it. So I didn't want to live with her. My brother, the middle brother, he's 3 years older than me. The oldest one is 6 years older than me. So he had an apartment. He was a painter at the time. And so I asked him if I could just like crash on his couch while I finished high school. And he said, yeah, I can't take care of you, but sure, you can sleep here on the couch. And so at the time, I'm doing whatever I can to try to give him some money, food, things like that. And so I started selling pot when I was a senior and, trying to take care of myself. So I had to, I was walking to school every day. I lived on Rio Linda Boulevard in Del Paso Heights, and I would walk to Grant High School, and I ended up graduating from Grant only because the football coach there, Mike Albergini, who's a legend, he made me go to night school.
I was going to ask you, why'd you stay in school? Like, you didn't have to.
I didn't. He made me. Well, he challenged me. A lot of the people in that neighborhood aren't going to have very successful lives. They're going to live, drug addicted lives, in and out of prison, things like that. They're going to be criminals their whole lives. Gangs are, it runs rampant there. And my family, my mom's side of the family, they are gang members. They're so my mom's Mexican, so they're all norteños, and my grandma lived 2 houses from the park in the Strawberry Manors. All of my uncles were gangbangers. And this is when at first I thought, this is like a family. This is kind of that brotherhood that I thought I was looking for. And my oldest brother was part of that. And I was like, I want to be like him. He's, this tough guy. And I was wrong about what they really represent and that sort of thing. So I saw that while I was, when you see this stuff over and over, my whole life going back there and visiting or living there at different times, it was eye-opening to say the least, but it was just a reminder that I don't have to follow the same path. And that's what Albergini was trying to teach me was, listen, you come to school and then you're going to have to go to night school every night. And he would meet me over there. One night I didn't show up. I went and smoked pot. I thought I needed the day off. And the next day when I went back, he said, where were you? And I said, I needed the day off. He said, you don't think I need the day off? If you don't come back again, like you skip another day, I won't be here when you get back. And I never missed another day. And because of that, I graduated high school, which in turn would lead me to be able to, join the military when I did.
It's incredible. We talk about it all the time, how the impact of mentor or us as mentors can have on someone. Sometimes you know it, sometimes you don't. Yep. But looking back, I can see how fondly you remember him and everything that he did for you to obviously set the path to get you where you're at today.
Do you still talk to him? Does he know the impact that he's had on you?
He doesn't.
No?
Is he still around?
He's pretty old. I haven't talked to him in a while. I did see him one day, but my life isn't where it is now. So, maybe I'll do some work this week and find out, because I do know where his son's at. I can get a hold of him. I think he would like to hear that.
Yeah. We hear so many people on the podcast and they talk about it. And to Anthony's point, at the time, you don't quite, and there was something that drew you to him, right? But coming out of it, we just hear so many people like, oh yeah, they had a major impact, but I didn't really say it or tell him or, know it till later.
It wasn't that I was drawn to him. It was that I played quarterback. So he wanted to know everything about me. He wanted to know who I was, where I come from.
He had his,
Who's your family? Who do I know here? And I'm like, all right.
When you graduate high school, what's the plan? Is there any idea of what you want to do?
I didn't think I was going to graduate. I was still five credits short. I got a job. So the last week is senior week. People are taking senior pictures. There's a senior ditch day. I didn't do any of that. I went and got this job and I started being a telemarketer for essentially what I was going to do was going to be part-time. I was going to go after lunch, and I did so well the very first day. They gave me a full-time job and asked me to come back the next morning. So I did. And because of that, I was there for lunch, and I ran into the teacher that gave me an F. He was at Costco. This is over by by Cal Expo. And he said, hey, I changed your grade from an F to a D. And I thought, no way. I'm going to go talk to Mr. Brown, who was the principal at the time. But I had to work again. So my mom and my brother, and I was terrified that my mom was going to go up here and talk to the principal. But my mom and my brother went up there. And one of my brothers he's the only person in my family to graduate high school besides me. So he went up there and they went to the state championship in basketball. So he went up there and talked to Mr. Brown, and he let me walk with my class and was like, he did a lot of work, and we'll let him walk. And that was phenomenal.
So that teacher do that because they saw you working? Why did he change it from an F to a D? Never found out?
He never said.
Yeah. Interesting.
So did you keep telemarketing, or what? You're like, I graduated now, so
I did that for about a month, and then my brother said he was moving in with his girlfriend, and I was going to have to find another place to stay. So I got a job with my buddy at a highway construction company in Livermore. So I moved to Manteca and started driving the Altamont Pass every day, and it was. I hated sitting in traffic every day. It was miserable, but I got to work outside. They had a shower there at our shop. So if I wanted to go catch a Giants game on Friday, evening, it was a short drive. I really loved, that portion of my life. I was doing good at work. Things were good in my life. And then everything changed on 9/11.
Oh.
Yeah.
So I clearly remember where I was, and I had already served. I was in the Marine Corps. So you haven't served. So I'm guessing this is the springboard to you making that decision. So walk us through it.
Change.
So I was getting ready for work in the morning, and I have this blue uniform, and I'm buttoning my shirt that says Danny on it. And I'm because I'm the yard boy, right? So I don't go work on the construction site. This is a highway construction company. What I do is I load all the trucks I drive a forklift. So I'm putting guardrail or the concrete forms that they're going to use to make the barriers in the middle of the freeway, or even the freeway signs. We did all that stuff, every bit of it. So I'm getting ready for work. And at the time, MTV used to play music videos. So I was trying to watch some music videos, which is what I did in the morning when I got ready. And there were no music videos on. They just kept showing this one plane crashing into the World Trade Center. And I didn't even know what the World Trade Center was. So I'm like, whatever. I don't want to watch the news. That's for old people. I'm going to VH1. They got music videos. Wrong again. They're all in New York. So they're showing this stuff. And then the second plane hits and I'm stunned. I sit down and I realize we're being attacked and we're going to go to war. So I called my boss and I left a message and said, hey, this is Danny. I'm sorry to do this last minute, but I'm quitting. I'm joining the military.
That moment.
Oh, wow.
Right then.
And so where'd you go? You go down to the recruiter and
hold on for a second. So you said that your father was in the military. So had you had any other relation to the military, thoughts about it? Was it really like 9/11 that in that moment, or had you considered it in the past or anything?
So my stepdad, Felipe, was a Marine as well. My dad was in the Navy. Both of them served in Vietnam. But my stepdad was a alcoholic and drug addict. And my dad was a jerk. And so I thought the military does that to you, right? I have a problem with authority. This is not the path for me.
Got it.
But when 9/11 happened, it was, essentially, I don't know what my thought process was, except for I know you need someone who's, young and capable and, I'm athletic. I don't think I can dodge bullets, but I think I can probably follow some orders and learn some stuff that can help me, survive and help my country. And I hate even admitting this, but I called the Marine Corps for an hour and a half and no one answered the phone. I was naive, right? I was 19 and I'm like, I know these guys get up early. Why are they not answering the phone? And I found out later. I didn't find out right then. But so eventually I called the Army. This guy, Corporal Thatcher, answered the phone and he said, do you know what happened today? And I said, yeah, why do you think I'm calling? And he said, come down here. So I did. And he said, do some push-ups. And I did push-ups. You have 2 minutes in the Army to do as many as you can. And within a minute, I had passed the minimum number. And he's like, oh, you're good. Can you run? And I was like, I'm 145 pounds at the time. I'm like, I can run. And he's like, all right, we're going to go run 2 miles. And I ran the 2 miles for him. He did some false paperwork, I'm pretty sure. And they promoted me from E1 to E2 before I even got in, which I thought was nice of him. But the process was pretty easy. Can you pass this test? And I went down and took the ASVAB, which was over in Northgate. And so I drove, down here to Sacramento and took the test. And so this was September 12th. And I picked my MOS, which ended up being fire support specialist, which is a forward observer for artillery. Essentially, it's do a math test in the middle of a gunfight and call for bombs, right? So you go with the infantry, and then when everything goes bad, you call for bombs. Now, at the time, if you would have asked me if I was good at math, I would have told you I don't think so. But it turns out I'm pretty good at math.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's a pretty incredible, a couple of things are just fascinating to me. One, by 19, you have every reason to be a drug addict or an alcoholic. You didn't make that choice. Then I took the ASVAB. I ended up in supply. You're struggling in school, and now you're ended up you have the math down. Where it just ended up you were absorbing that.
I was bored in school. I wasn't dumb. I just didn't apply myself. And when I got home, no one said, hey, how was school today? Let's do your homework. What do you got? What's going on? What's your report about? None of that. And to be honest with you, I'm probably a much better writer than I am good at math. But eventually I was an engineer in the oil field too, right? And so these things they obviously allude to the fact that I'm decent at math, enough to, be able to. You're scared. When I'm setting up on 9/11, when I'm learning to do this stuff, I realize like I'm going to be the tip of the spear. We're going to fight and I'm going. And you don't screw this up, because if you do screw this up, one of two things is going to happen. Your buddies are going to get killed. You're going to prison because you bombed the wrong thing. Right. So that motivated me to get this right, to learn, to really put my head down and focus on what I was supposed to and not all the background noise that I had growing up.
So you take that test on the 12th. How before you ship off to boot camp? And where's boot camp?
October 15th, Fort Sill, Oklahoma.
Yeah, so they were just taking everybody at the time.
I thought so. I ended up in the delayed entry program for essentially a month, and the only reason what I was told at the time was because my MOS, my job, required a security clearance, so I have to wait for that to happen. Well, that didn't happen then. It happened once I got in the Army, but I didn't know that. They told me we had to wait, and they did whatever paperwork, background checks, and so I ended up at Fort Sill in October of 2001, and it was a little crazy. We could tell that the drill sergeants. Well, we were pretty sure that the drill sergeants were turn up the heat a little bit because they knew what they're training us for war. Yeah, my drill sergeant has been here and he told me that
they knew where they were sending you. So they did. So they knew the gravity of it.
Yeah.
So I went into the Marine Corps and I was a troubled kid as well. So problems with authority. I went in there and it was like the best thing. Boot camp was the best thing. I was getting 3 meals a day. I was up at a certain time. Not everybody adjusted that way. Like you could yell. My dad was a cop. Like you could yell at me all day long. I didn't have a problem with it. How was it for you?
My dad was a cop in Stockton for a little while. So I ended up becoming the Distinguished Honor Grad of boot camp, and that is because of my drill sergeant. So he put me in a leadership position immediately. I was a team leader, like a squad leader, and then he put me in charge of my platoon. And I'm not sure what he saw or wanted out of me, but whatever it was, he was going to get, and he wasn't going to stop until he got it. And I don't know if he did that with it. I'm sure it felt like that for all the other soldiers, right? He's going to make us be soldiers. He's going to teach us, right? Form us into this weapon that, our country can be proud of. But I had a problem with authority, and I was, but when I got there, that switch flipped for me, and it wasn't about he's authority. It's about this is my teacher. He's going to teach me what I need to know to survive in the near future. So whenever I did focus on something, I excelled at it, and this was no different. Whether it was taking apart and putting my rifle back together, shooting, rucking, running, whatever, calling cadence, and he put me in those positions and made me draw that out of the other guys too, which I loved, because it's like no different than being a quarterback, right? We're down. This is our time to shine, right?
Well, some major differences, right? Like life's in your hands. So yeah, I hear you. Yes,
but nothing basic yet. Yeah,
true. But I was going to ask you. So how easy was it to adapt and get into that leadership role? So I understand the sports piece of it, but now you're at a different level, and so boot camp was what, 2-3 months?
9 weeks.
9 weeks, and so you're coming out honor grad, and now you're one of the leaders of these men, young men, but still, that's a massive transition from where you were. What, 10 weeks ago, 12 weeks ago? Putting on your shirt with Danny on it. Yeah. Where does that leadership skill come from? I know you have the mentor teaching it. Was it natural? Were you wanting it?
I wanted it for sure. I didn't ask for it. I just did what I was told. But I feel like whatever I was told to do, I wanted to be the best at that. Whatever it was. We're putting on a tourniquet today. We're learning how to triage someone who's, going through whatever we're learning today. I want to be the best at this exercise, this task that they've given us.
Yeah. Brings back a lot of memories. So somewhere in December, you're graduating, right? December, January?
They send us home for Christmas.
Oh, Army's so sweet.
They were very nice to us. Marine Corps does not do that to this day. I go home for 2 weeks, and I see like old family. Everybody wants to drink and do all this stuff, and then right back to it. And they're going to drug test you, and you're going to, all these things. So I'm on the straight and narrow. I come home, and I did drink a little bit, even though I wasn't old enough. And then, but I had a lot of pride, I think. I knew that I was changing. I had these values that I hadn't had before. And people think it's cheesy or corny now, but I still live my life by those values that he taught me while we were there. And it's loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. And that LDRSHIP is the first letter, and it's about leadership. This is how you become a leader. You exemplify these values every day.
Yeah, I don't think it's cheesy at all. It stays with all of us that had served. Graduate boot camp, and then where do you transition to?
I stay right there at Fort Seal because that's the home of the artillery. So I'm going to learn my job. I'm going to spend another, I think it was 8 weeks that we spent there learning to be a fort observer, call for artillery, mortars, air support, naval gunfire. Anything that blows up, it's our gig. And so we want to make sure that we're accurate and we don't screw this up, right? And they push that. You guys are going to make sure that we win this war, right? We can't lose because we have you and all this cool technology, and these are the coolest bombs that there ever has been and ever will be. So we buy into this, right? And then they show us cool montages or videos of this stuff, and they put music behind it. And this is long before, Instagram or, and it reels, right? So I got, drowning pool playing this, and I have artillery barrages and it's like, wait, did you know this is what we were doing? Did anyone explain that this is what our job was going to be? And it was like, not exactly, but this is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that 8-week period, are you just hyper focused on at the end of this, I'm going to fight?
No. I want to go be a ranger. So how do I go? So my dad when he came to my graduation. So I wasn't allowed to tell him I was a distinguished honor grad or any of that stuff, even though I knew when I went home for Christmas that I was already. They already told me. But my drill sergeant made me promise, essentially, I'm not allowed to tell them. So I said, okay. So my dad didn't like flying, but he did come out to Oklahoma. He didn't come to my high school graduation, but he did come to my boot camp graduation. So I'm the first seat, the first one in the auditorium because it's snowing outside. And after that, we go back to the barracks. And he was like, one thing you probably won't do that I did was special operations. And I thought, is he trying to have this contest with me right now? He doesn't think that I'm capable of this, or I don't know. So he left the barracks and I went and knocked on my drill sergeant's door and was like, how do I go be a ranger? And he's like, what just happened? And I was like, I'm good. I just want to know. So essentially told me I had to put in this request form because I didn't have airborne or any of these things I didn't have a contract to go be a ranger. And when I was in what we call AIT, Advanced Individual Training, to learn my job, they had 10 slots for airborne school, and 7 of them we're called FISTers, stands for Fire Support Team. So 7 of them went to the FISTers, and they knew that I had asked permission to run more at night, to do things to make sure that when I got there, I was going to be prepared. And they gave me one of the slots to airborne school.
So that's not an easy slot to get. Those are coveted.
Right.
Yeah. So it wasn't just boot camp. You had to have done other things to stand out. What are
So in AIT, it's called the Master Blaster. So it's essentially the same kind of thing, right? I'm the top guy shooting artillery during our training. When you have the certification, I did the best during that as well.
So you're just excelling, and you're changing as a human.
Right.
You're becoming a man.
I think I am, yeah. But I still had all this childhood trauma that was going with me everywhere I went.
So take us into Ranger School.
So I didn't go to Ranger School. I went to Ranger Indoctrination Program. Okay. So essentially what you have is it's 15 days and they just kick your teeth in. They want you to quit. And so I don't know how to quit. I'm just going to keep going. No matter what happens, I'm going to keep going. And then I graduate and I get a tambourine and I get to be a ranger. And then I got in trouble shortly after that. My roommate actually got in trouble. And because of that, I got what was called needs of the Army, and I got sent to, worldwide needs of the Army, and I ended up going to Korea. So I didn't stay there very long. I was bitter, angry. I thought I'd earned this, and I did, but they were giving me another chance to go back. My roommate who got in trouble did not, right? So they kicked him out of the Army. I had an opportunity, I thought, to go back and have a career there, and that's not what happened. I went to Korea. I spent a little over a year there, and then we are going to war with Iraq. Now, I'm in the mountains in Korea. It's snowy, so I think we're preparing to go to Afghanistan. That was my whole thought process. This is why I joined the Army in the first place.
With your unit now, right? Mm-hmm. So now you're developing these bonds and this brotherhood.
That's right. So my very first squad leader's name's Jared Monty. He's the guy who taught me how to be a fister, who taught me my job, and he was just this Well, Monty means mountain in Italian, right? But he was like 5'7". It sounded like he'd been smoking for like 40 years. All right, boys, we're going to go over here and assault the objective. This is how he talked, and it was so funny. He just had this raspy voice. He's this little guy. And Jared was such a great leader. He didn't have to be big and brawny to do all these amazing things. He just put one foot in front of the other every single time, and he showed you like you can keep going. And have fun while you're doing it. He definitely showed a fun side to squad leaders, because not all of the squad leaders that I had when I was in the Army were nice, and I wasn't always nice as a squad leader. But Jared's a special person to me. He got the Medal of Honor, and he got killed June 21st, 2006.
So I definitely want to walk through that. Let's lead up to it.
Yep.
So this year that you're spending in Korea is all training.
Yeah, so everything's training. And so because I'm field artillery, we spend most of my time, I'm either in the field training for like essentially 3 to 4 weeks, like 3 weeks a month at a time, and then come back, and we're back for like a month or two, and then we go do like another 2-3 weeks, and then we come back, and we do that over and over again. And so we'll go out there, we'll shoot artillery, we'll hike and ruck around these mountains. Because I'm a forward observer, they want me to go hike these mountains, right? So I have a pack with radio gear, batteries, plus all my regular stuff, ammo, and cold weather gear because it's freezing there. So all that stuff, and we hike around everywhere.
Were you afraid any of this? You end up in Korea, you're a kid from Stockton, now you're in Korea going out and doing like, were you afraid, or you're just in it and loving it?
I was having a good time. I didn't think about the fear portion. It did come. Yeah. But not till I got to combat. And it didn't take very long for you to realize, like, when you get there, it's real. It's for keeps, and you don't get there's no respawning. This isn't the video games, right? And yep. Yeah, so it changed. But in the beginning, during the training part, there wasn't really like this, my life's in jeopardy, imminent danger feeling. So I had a good time. Same thing. I wanted to be the best at whatever task it was. And eventually I worked for the Sergeant Major because of that. And that was great, because he's really, he's probably the best leader that I've ever had in my life. And he taught me a lot about being a leader, about what it looks like when no one's watching you, and how you behave and how you perform then and what you do. I saw him take care of guys that have no clue that he's the one who did those things for him, but I do. Right. And some of those guys I've told, and some of them I haven't. And I'm grateful that I got to witness that and see it. And he told me, this is how you take care of guys. It doesn't matter that they know that I'm the one who did it and they come give me, hey, thank you, Sergeant. I don't need that. It's my job. And I thought, this is the top ranked enlisted man in my battalion. And here he is, doing these selfless things, exemplifying these values.
Yeah, it's goosebumps. It's incredible. I want to take 2 to 3 minutes, because I can relate and understand to a part of this that I want you to tell. Like, you're training for a year, but it's not all training. You're going back to the barracks. You have people that they're getting, their Dear John letters. You're having to go out. You're going out. You're bringing people home drunk. You're making sure you're helping them out in a fight. How is this brotherhood outside of the training? Like, spend a minute or two just talking about how you guys became this family.
So when I first got there, they put me with this guy, Carol. He was going to be my ranger buddy or battle buddy. I was going to go everywhere with him. He was going to teach me what I needed to know to get around Korea and the area we were in, to learn the things I needed to learn. And when we first go out, when I first go meet Sergeant Monty, they make us do what he called a fister shot, and I had to snort a shot of 151. It was the worst thing ever. It burned so bad. I wanted to puke, and he was like, if you puke, you're out. And so then you're like... So you do all these dumb things because you want to be accepted into this brotherhood, right? It was like, I don't think I had ever, like, if this is what it was like joining the gang, man, I was down to do whatever they wanted me to do. And so I think what I was learning was, you really don't mean much as an individual, right? Like, you're a drop of water in an ocean. But with all these guys, we're an ocean, and we're powerful. We're strong together. This platoon, this group of guys is unstoppable, and it feels that way, right? Like, we can do anything together. When we work together, we can accomplish any goal. And I think because we had specific leaders like Sergeant Monty that pushed us when we thought we were ready to fall over and crumble, when we were ready to give in and say, I just want some water and Motrin in 15 minutes in a smoke. He wasn't giving it to you. You'll get, we quit. We don't quit when, we're tired. We quit when we're done. And that was kind of the mantra that he just kept pushing, and it worked.
So you guys start just getting close through all these experiences and the training, just time and the fun and the memories. And I'm sure if we
and there were fights too. There were absolutely fights.
I love that we can like see the memories a little bit in your eyes and your face, like as it runs through. Like I'm sure there was some good stories.
Jared specifically got in a fight. Him and Sergeant Gaddy were a little inebriated, and they were coming back from what we call downrange. They were drinking, and there was a commo guy from our headquarters company, and somehow Sergeant Gaddy and this commo guy got into an argument, and they got into a fist fight. And so Sergeant Gaddy started losing. Well, we had a platoon rule: if your buddy gets in a fight, you help him win, and then you move, leave the AO, so area of operations. So Sergeant Monty jumps in, he beats up the commo guy. He did get a black eye for his trouble. They all three get in trouble. They have to go see the colonel, and they get busted. And Monty goes in there, and he's like, Sergeant Monty, I've spoken with them. You want to tell me why, you assaulted the commo guy? And he said, sir, we have a platoon rule, and I know it's not approved by you, but we do have a platoon rule that if someone gets in a fight, you help them out. And he said, you understand that the commo guy is in headquarters company? And he said, yes, sir. As I stated, a platoon rule, right? Because he wasn't in the same platoon. So then he starts hammering him. All right, Sergeant Monty, 45 days of extra duty, 45 days restriction. And he busted him down. That wasn't the only time Sergeant Monty got busted down, but we took care of each other. The lieutenant had warned these other guys because they were kind of getting loud. We were in a bar one night, and we had finally accepted the lieutenant as a actual member of the platoon. And so he warned these guys, and they kept talking crap. So we ended up getting in a fight with those guys and beat them up, and we had to leave. But yeah, those things did happen for sure. And it helped you bond closer together.
How you bond. Yeah. It is. And at the end of the day, I would have I know, even though we got in fights with those guys, at some point, they're all still brothers.
100%.
Go hug them.
Yep.
Like, all right.
Even the commo guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was like, I was drunk, sorry.
Yeah. So end of the year. So what happens when you guys get orders to go? What are the orders, or is there something in between?
So from Korea, they send me to Fort Hood, Texas. So I don't deploy because Korea at the time was considered a deployment. So I'm there for a year. It's an unaccompanied tour because they don't have a ceasefire, or excuse me, they don't have a peace treaty. They have a ceasefire agreement. So they know we're going to Iraq. So I'm going straight to Fort Hood. I'm going to get my stuff, and I'm going to Iraq. And so I didn't have a lot of time to, I guess, process like what's happening. This is what I've been training for. I just didn't get a chance to train with these guys. They've already trained. I'm going to go join.
So you're joining a new crew.
Right. So I get there, I get to 4th Infantry Division, and, I get put in my new 5th platoon, and the guys are squared away, but I'm the new guy. So first they think, like, is this guy Criminal Investigation Division? Is he a plant to find out if we're doing anything illegal? And they realized very quickly, like, that's not the case. I'm here to do the job. Let's get busy. And it was a little chaotic in the first deployment during that initial invasion. It was just, we thought we were going to get in tank battles. We didn't really know what it was going to look like. And we had guys shooting at, in the backs of trucks at us, things like that. But we were getting rocketed a lot in mortars on our camp. But I stayed in Saddam's palaces. I went crap in his toilet. I swam in his pool. There are things that were a little different about that deployment than the one after that. But it was, I don't want to say uneventful. It wasn't as deadly as what happened after.
So let's talk about this one real quick. So this deployment, how many are in your unit?
So in our, like, the people that are staying at like the palace and then the other barracks over in to Crit, it was probably like 200 or so.
How many are you close to? Let's talk about your...
Yeah. You're talking like 10, 12 guys.
10, 12 guys. So out of that 10, 12 guys, do you guys everybody come out of that deployment?
Everybody was good on that one.
Everyone's good on that one. So you want to fast forward, come back home. How long are you home for? Come back home.
I'm home for a year. I re-enlist. This is my gig. I love this. This is what I was meant to do. So I've gotten promoted now. I'm a sergeant. I re-enlist. I go down to this new unit. So I actually got promoted down there. I was a corporal promotable when I got down there. And then I think maybe a month after being there, I get promoted. So I'm a sergeant. I'm a squad leader. There's 4 squad leaders. All of the squad leaders have been to Iraq or Afghanistan. I've had one deployment under the belt. I have one E4. And he's also deployed. Everyone else is a brand new, straight out of boot camp private, every one of them. And it was a new unit. Well, it was an old unit that they were standing back up. They had decommissioned it and they were standing this unit back up. And so we know kind of what the gig is, but now I'm going to train these guys for a full year lead up into a deployment. I'm super excited. This is actually, to me, the best job possible I could have. They could have promoted me, 6 more times, and I would have wanted that job over and over again, because these are the guys who I'm going to go spend the entire year with in war. And that meant something to me because I get to be their leader, right? I'm going to teach them and train them. And it's not going to be this ragtag group. It's going to be a whole year of training. And I'm humbled to be in that position.
How many guys?
So I get 10 guys.
You get 10 guys.
And then a lieutenant as well. So there's 12 of us total for my squad. Yeah.
All right. So you're the 12th, so 11 other.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So over that year, you get to know their families, their spouses.
Yep.
Are you married?
I'm married.
Okay. So this is a family. You guys having barbecues together.
Yes.
You guys are going out together, get to know their kids.
Yes.
All of it. So orders come. You guys have a year. This is what everyone's ready.
Yes.
So walk us through the goodbyes.
So a few weeks before we deploy, our families came into the chapel, and our battalion commander, the colonel, goes there and tells them we're going to go to the green zone. And he gives them this story, and we go outside, and I tell my guys, I have no idea what just happened, but he just lied. There's no way we're going to the green zone. We didn't just train up a year for this. So then 3 days later, we're going back into the chapel, no families allowed. And they say, we're not going to the green zone. We're going to go to Solder City. At the time, they said it is deadly. It's one of the most deadly places on earth. They need us to go be a hammer down there. And that's exactly what we're going to go do. And yes, sir. It's the only answer that's, acceptable. I didn't know this at the time, but what had happened was our commanding general came down and talked to our battalion commander and said, I need you guys to go do this mission, and I trust you to go do it. And so they ended up sending us, and my battalion commander told me that a couple years back when we had a reunion. But when we find this out, I go back and I'm excited to tell the guys, because I'm dumb. I don't realize like what that means for us over the next year, right? But this is what we've been like training for. This is why we're here. So
it's who you are.
Exactly. I didn't join the Army to be a paper pusher, or, I wasn't the dental assistant. We're going to go kill these dudes, and that's what our gig is, and that's what we're going to go do, right? And, our job isn't to die for our country, it's to make the other poor bastard die for his. And that was kind of the focus. And so that train up, like my dad had told me when he went to Vietnam, he saw this sign at Camp Pendleton, and it said, the more you sweat in peace, the less you bleed in war. So I wrote that on my leader's book. And every time I opened it, whether it was writing something about my guys, something I thought they needed to focus on, something they did well, whatever it was, because I had, essentially, it was, like you said, I'm keeping track of all these guys and what we're doing and learning. And so, I carry this thing around everywhere I go. And this is like my focus is to make sure that they're going to be alive. And that means I'm going to have to kick their teeth in a little bit here. And they were savages. By the time we were ready to go on deployment, I felt like I'm going to take this leash off of these. We were called the Hounds of Hell, right? So off of Cerberus, and I'm going to let these guys go. And it is going to be, just the epitome of everything we've learned and trained for. And they're going to go do it. And I'm excited.
I was going to ask you on that point. There's the leadership, you obviously take it seriously, you're teaching them, but when their like actual life is on the line, that has to be like, did you feel this like did that worry you? Or, obviously like you're like, I better train them well, right? Because they could, end up dying. So was it just a massive amount of pressure, or, just what was that like on you? Like worrying about everybody else, including yourself?
I wasn't very responsible in my life before the Army. This was terrifying. I'm responsible for them. And for 2 of them, at least, I just told their wives, hey, he's going to be okay. We're going to go make sure of it. I'm going to be with him. Everything's going to be okay. One of them was the lieutenant. And then he got picked when we were in Kuwait to go be the convoy commander to drive from Kuwait to Iraq. I've already done this drive. I'm supposed to go get in the plane and fly over and then take a helicopter to my fob. That's not what's going to happen. I'm now going to spend 3 days in this freaking Humvee. I'm either going to gun or, whatever. And I told him, because I just told his wife, everything's going to be cool. I can't let him not even make it to our fob because he gets blown up on the way there. And he's going to be the lead vehicle of, 100 vehicles or whatever. We got 150 vehicles. And it was a mess. So it didn't take very long though. The guys realized what was happening. So December, we deploy of 05, we get to our fob Christmas Eve, and Christmas morning they drove a vehicle-borne IED, a VBID, into the gate, killed 2 guys who were getting ready to go home. So they're leaving in 2 days, and they're not. And so that was the beginning of that deployment, and it just stayed that way through the entire time. Well, we lost initially 7 guys through that deployment. And then the day we're leaving, we lose 2 more, same as that other group, right? So we lost 2 guys hours before we leave. And it was just, I mean, it takes everything out of you. Any morale you had left, hey, I'm going home, I'm excited. You're not excited at all. You don't want to, I'm going to have to go talk to these people. And here I am, I'm still mourning. I got 2 brothers and I haven't even really grieved the other 7. So it's like I had this joyous feeling that we're going to go home. My guys have been hurt. A couple of them have gone home early, but none of them are dead. None of my guys are dead. But these other guys, they're my guys too. They're just not, you know, they're not under my command per se, but I know them. I know every one of them. And this was devastating to have this happen right before we leave. But a week before we deployed, I get a guy who's 17 years old. He came with a nickname. His name is Bubba. He's from Mississippi. I didn't give him that name. He is a fishing boat captain now. He's on a shrimp boat captain, but Bubba's 17 years old, and he is the one that I said, I have to protect this kid. I cannot let anything happen to him. So I told him, you're in my hip pocket. You do not, I move, you move. You go everywhere I go. You stay with me, and that's the way this works for the next year. Bubba spoke Arabic. He barely spoke English. He's from Mississippi. He has an R to everything, like computer. He knows.
Yes.
But I can't step in this kid's way. If he gets favor from the chain of command, that's because he's earned it, right? So the first sergeant said, hey, this kid speaks Arabic. He's going to go out and be my interpreter. So he's out in the Humvees with those guys, and he gets blown up and he gets part of his leg ripped off. And, you know, here he has to go back early, and I'm devastated. That I think was really hard for me to deal with as a leader, because I felt like I couldn't protect him. Like I should have went and told the first sergeant, you know, kick rocks. This guy's mine. He's coming with me. But that's not the way it works.
Was that your first guy to get hurt?
No. Ski had gotten hit in the neck. Lieutenant got hit in the face by an IED. And then Hughes got hit. A guy shot an RPG at our vehicle, and it hit my driver in the face. I got shrapnel on my back. Almost everybody got hit that year. It wasn't to the point where most of them went home. Most of us just kind of dealt with what we had, and, you know, because who are you going to get to take your place, right? There's not really someone you can't just go grab the medic and say, you're going to be a forward observer now, or, you know, someone else. There's not very many of us. And so it's just kind of something you deal with.
So how does your mindset change over that period from when you entered the leadership you had to 2 individuals right when you get there get killed? Now your guys are starting to get hit. They're dealing with it. So what is not just your leadership style, but what you're having to deal with? The people you went over with, they're not the same people. They're changing.
Yep.
So whether it's they're scared, they're having nightmares, they miss their family, all of those things are now being introduced to you. Who are you leaning on, and how are you handling this as their leader?
So I don't think I really had anyone to lean on, but I think that was partly my fault, because I never really reached out to other leaders and said, hey, what am I supposed to do about this stuff? You know, what we're going through. And I think that was because of like my childhood, right? So I didn't have someone that I could go ask for help. I just had to figure it out. And that's what I thought in this situation too. I can't say that I handled it, you know, the best, but I remember coming outside. So Sergeant Jenkins got killed, and we were there switching guys, and he got shot. It could have just as easily been me, and he got shot in the head and killed by a sniper. And so, you know, when we go to his memorial service and they have the salute and all that stuff, when we go outside, and I tell my guys, hey, we're going back out again tomorrow, same bat time, same bat place, get your head on a swivel, or we're going to die here tomorrow. And, you know, this doesn't change for us, right? We have to keep, you know, doing what we have to do. And so my mindset at the time was on survival, but looking back now, I feel like I contributed to their PTSD because I didn't give them a chance to grieve. If you ask them, they'll say, you know, thank you. I'm glad that you kept us focused on the mission at hand, staying alive so we could go home. And, you know, if we didn't have that, we could have easily let our minds wander to, you know, why that wasn't me, or, you know, how we're going to get out of this place. And so not letting those thoughts win, I think, was kind of my goal. But it doesn't mean it didn't happen. It was they're looking for someone to say something, right? And the lieutenant's not going to do it. And so this is my responsibility. This is what I'm here for anyways, right? Because this is the lieutenant's first trip. He's never done this before. They need to hear this from me. They need to hear like, hey, it's going to be okay, but no one's going to come save us, right? We're going to gunfight. It's up to us. So, you know, they understood, and I couldn't be more proud of those guys than I am.
How are you processing it, or are you just stuffing it down?
Stuffing it down.
Just stuffing it down.
I make jokes. I have dark humor. Like we went to go get ice one day. They had this guy who had like a refrigerator truck, and me and my driver Hughes went to go get the ice for the mission that night. And because we're usually out at night, and so we go over there, we get these, I think we each had 6 bags of ice each for each track. And so when I'm walking out of that it's like a small little, 15 by 15 walled off area where this truck trailer is. And we start taking incoming. Well, the guy who pinned my sergeant stripes, he's in the gym. He gets hit in the neck and almost dies. He's okay, but he almost dies. The ice guy who I'm 30 feet away from, he gets blown in half and killed. And later I'm joking about it because I don't know like what I'm supposed to do. That could have been me, but it's not. Instead, I'm going to go out on mission and it might be me 10 minutes later, 20 minutes later, 3 hours. I have no idea what the day is going to bring. I don't know.
So when you come back after that year, how many guys did you lose?
We lost 9.
Lost 9. And how many injured that they had to be sent home? And
we had over 115 Purple Hearts. I don't remember how many got sent home early who were like pretty catastrophic. There were several
Purple Hearts. I mean, that
tells the story.
The story. 9 guys. So when you come back home, how many of those families do you have to go to? And was it any of those members, the 10 or 11 that you went with, didn't come back?
All of my guys came back alive.
All of you guys came back.
Oh, wow.
Did they come back the same?
No, none of them.
How about you?
Not even close.
So walk us through the next. So when you get back from that deployment, they'd say, "Hey, good job, take a month off." So what happens? How do people don't understand this? So what's the process?
I was terrified when I got off the plane because I knew I had to give my rifle up, and I was deathly afraid of not having that weapon with me every day because
Back home?
I felt like someone was always going to try to kill me. When I came home on R&R in the middle of that deployment, I bought one of those like outside glass tables with the umbrella, and my brother had just moved out from California. He was going to come work out there, and so I let him stay at my place. And man, we're going to cook some carne asada. I'm excited. I'm going to drink some Corona. I'm going to enjoy this freedom for a minute. Well, where I live off base is not too far from where the ranges are. So they start shooting artillery. First Cavalry's out there and they start shooting. And I hear the first one. I'm talking just like this. I stop. I get up. I walk through my sliding glass door. I'm going to get my weapon because as far as I know, because of like our camp, there's several times when they said they're going to try to overrun it and kill everyone on here. Right. So, you got to prepare for that. Well, they start attacking us. And that's my first thought was these guys are going to try to overrun the gate or something. We're going to have to shoot some of these guys. I walked through my sliding glass door and I realized you just walk through a sliding glass door. You're at home. Everything's cool. I turn back around and my brother's like wide-eyed. He's like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "I'm cool. Yeah." Felt fine. This is just where my head's at right now. I came home. It was the same. Even though like I know I'm home, I drink. It was the only way I could kind of keep the emotions at bay. I felt and sleep because I wasn't doing either one of those. And so it was tough because they didn't. They warned us that if you go tell these guys you're having these issues, they're going to send you to mental health. Potentially, you're going to lose your security clearance and get kicked out of the Army. And I'm like, not a chance. I'm good. Check everybody. I'm good to go. I don't have any of these issues.
So all of you, for the most part, all of you guys are checking all those boxes.
Everyone lied. Yeah. So because like they have like there's like 5 questions that they ask in one particular part of this, and it's have you ever been in a gunfight? Have you ever seen a dead body? Have you ever been engaged by the enemy? Like all these things, and every one of them's yes. But you can't. If I say that, I've already been told if I say that they're going to send me mental health. I'm not going home for my 30 days of leave. So they did give us 30 days. It took a week. They wanted to do a little bit of transition stuff and then go home for a month.
In the middle of this?
After you get back. After the year-long deployment.
Okay.
So you get essentially a month of leave is what they gave us. I think there was like a week or two we did some transition stuff, and it's like the chaplain comes in and says, "Hey, listen, your family's been doing this for a year without you. Don't come in trying to be in charge. Like let them do right. Let them kind of do what they've been doing and ease your way back into it." They were trying to help that transition. They didn't give us very good advice though, and most of the guys were super young and they just wanted to come back and try to have a kid and get drunk. That was they weren't thinking much further ahead than that. And so I think my home became kind of a hub, right? So I get divorced and the guys were just coming to my house. So they would come to my house and drink after work. They'd come over and drink. And that was, unfortunately, at that point, I was not being a good leader. I wasn't being a good example. And that was I told him, this is kind of how you deal with this.
And were you guys talking about anything that happened, or was everything else but that?
Everything but
So
that.
everybody knew, like you had to know. That's why everyone was getting it. They didn't know. No one knew how to deal with it.
No, we joked about he's got the PTSDs. Absolutely, 100% joked like, oh, every one of you guys has TBI, traumatic brain injury. Every one of us had been in an explosion. Every one of us had been, whether it was you were knocked out by an explosion, you were hit by shrapnel, you were, we'd all been in several explosions. And so we just joked about it because we didn't, like, you felt for the most part okay, except you didn't, right? You had certain things that were starting to come up. And for some, it was getting progressively worse, whether it was headaches from the TBI, whether it was memory issues, whether it was the sleep issues, the substance abuse, the, risky behavior like drinking and driving or getting in fights down at the bar. All those things were getting ramped up way worse than they were before deployment.
And so all of you guys were in combat situations. Fair to say, probably all of you killed other people.
Yes.
How are you guys? Let's just talk about how are you reconciling that? Did you have a problem with it ever?
I don't think that bothers me much at all. The parts that bother me are my guys getting hurt, and I felt like I didn't protect them. Like I didn't teach them what they were supposed to learn so that they couldn't, so that they would not just survive, but like to not get hit in the first place.
Okay, so coming back from the 30 days, how much more time you spend in?
So that I came back in December of 2006 and I got out in 2008. So I was going to go back for another deployment. So when we come back from the 30 days leave, I immediately go down to another unit, to 122 Infantry, and they're gearing up. We're going to go back for another year-long deployment. But when I'm there and you go through this processing, they said, you have TBI and PTSD. You need to go to mental health. And it's like, oh no, this is for real. And I tried to talk my way out of it, right? I'm pretty persuasive. I think like I can explain to this major, like I'm good, but sure, I've been in combat situations, and who isn't hypervigilant after dealing with this stuff and, all those sort of things. But he said that I wasn't good and so he wasn't going to sign my paper. So I go back and I tell my platoon sergeant and the commander, and they're like, what the hell, get him to sign your stuff. And I was like, I tried. So what that led to was, you're not deployable, and we're gonna have to figure something out. So they ended up saying, essentially I didn't have very many choices. I wasn't going to change my job, so I have to get out. And I didn't like that. I felt they were stealing from me. I felt they abandoned me, right? I did all this stuff, and now you're saying like, well, I'm broken. Well, help me. What do I need? Well, how can I get better? But I was resistant to that. I didn't think I was broken at all. I thought they were screwed up. Like, you guys sign my paper, let me go do what I do, right? You want me doing this.
And you really wanted to go back? Like, you to do like another tour,
that was fine.
You were fine with that? You didn't have any maybe I'll stay in but not do that? You wanted to go? I
mean, like, did I think my guys could get killed? Yeah. Did I think it could, lead to my death? Absolutely. But I felt like, in the church, they call it a calling. Like, this is my calling. I'm meant to do this. God put me here to do this, right? So it felt like it was much bigger than me. And this was the sacrifice that they talked about that I was going to have to make. I just didn't know what I was sacrificing. I just knew what I was sacrificing for, right? For my country. This is what I'm supposed to do this for. And I didn't realize, like, being unhealthy and being in a war environment and an unhealthy environment is not good, right? So they were right. I just didn't see it at the time.
And how old were you at the time?
24. 24.
Wow, baby, when you look back. So you transition out of the military, not healthy.
Not healthy.
Physically, are you okay?
So I have shrapnel in my back, and for the most part, I'm okay. But I'm starting to have, some issues. I have stomach GI issues. I was puking blood, have ulcer. I had blood in my stool. They didn't know, like, if that was caused from stress or from the explosion, or they weren't sure. I had a brain bleed that had gone undiagnosed because they didn't know. And so physically I'm having some issues, but I think I'm okay. And I tell people I'm good.
And you're 25, 26?
25 now.
25. So kid from Stockton goes in. What accommodations you walk out with?
So I had, I got the Army Commendation Medal, Army Achievement Medal, several oak leaf clusters. I got several of those. Oh man, I don't know. There's a bunch. Those are like the stuff from like the war stuff though.
And so at the time, does it mean anything?
No.
I asked because, like, as you're telling the story, like, there's the human part of it, and then you're talking about the Army letting you down. They give you these medals and they say you're out.
So they were supposed to give me a Bronze Star medal, but they didn't. And that's okay. I don't care, because that medal doesn't mean anything, right? Talking to my soldiers, if you go ask them, like, we know what we did, and we know that we did it together. And that gives me more pride than that medal ever could, right? Because people can guess or, try to figure out what happened, or I could even tell them, but it's not the same as like going through it with the guys and all that. So the medal doesn't mean much.
Yeah. So, I can remember growing up and having these just wild fantasies about being the hero and whatever it is. And then when I was in the Marine Corps, like, yeah, send me over there. I want to do this. I want to do. You are like a walking, living, badass dude. Is it all it's cracked up to be?
No. The human side of that is, I don't feel bad about the lives that I took, like we talked about, but it crushes my soul knowing that these guys got hurt and and killed. And, I don't know if I felt like I should have been able to do more, right? And that's not what happened, because like you said, we have these grandiose ideas in our head about, the enemy's going to stick his head up at the right time and I'm going to shoot him and save these guys, and that's not going to happen. Or, when they go to push the button to set off the IED, I'm going to see him and shoot him, and that's not going to happen. And none of those things happened, right? They hide well. We're the away team for a reason. So my platoon sergeant would say, we're in a target-rich environment, lots of opportunity here, man, right? But the truth is, like, the opportunity is I'm the one who's going out here every day, and it's my neck on the line, and it's my guys who are getting shot up and hurt and killed and burned and, missing, their limbs and all these things. And so at some point, I'm going to have to try to figure out where to put that stuff. I don't have time for it right now, so I just keep going.
And so if a kid came up to you today, and I know that you do speaking events, you talk to kids, they say, I want to go do what you do. What is your advice? And we're gonna go down your story, but I'm curious, what do you tell them?
I would want to know why, right? What's their reasoning? And it's usually, I'll tell you right now, it's almost always because someone in their family, their grandfather, their uncle, their dad, someone served, and they want to, I don't know if it's test your salt. You want to feel like you're worthy of that, right? Whether it's the title soldier, Marine, or whether, you just want to test your salt. I think there's, and I can't say this for everyone, but I know I think most young men, at least when growing up, you always wanted to try to prove that, you were good enough for whatever it was, whether it was a sports team or, even in the military. Like, as being a fister, you want to show the guys on your team that you're worthy of being there. And so for kids that I talk to now, I tell them, like, listen, I go back to those values. These are the values that you need to live your life by. And if you do that, you're going to be okay. You'll be very successful. If you go into the military, you're going to have an opportunity to do things that most people can only dream of or watch on Hollywood movies. So, don't take it for granted, because it's over before you know it. Enjoy every moment. And even the ones that are hard, they're worth it, and they're cool stories later. So that's usually my message to them.
Do you have children?
I do. I have 4 kids. So I got a senior, a junior, a freshman, and a 7th grader.
And has the military conversation come up?
Absolutely. But I have 3 girls and a boy, so it's a little different. My daughter's a cheerleader. She's going to go to Boise State. My next daughter, who's a junior, she's pretty tough. She doesn't like running, but I think she would do extremely well in the military, but I don't think that's where her heart is. Mm-hmm. My son, he's got a problem with authority. He's a bit of a knucklehead. So we adopted 2 kids out of foster care. The junior and my freshman are adopted siblings. And so, they have their own baggage and stuff that they came with, but they're, they excel in different areas. I don't know if he's going to go to the military, but he does love playing anything that has to do with military stuff. He loves it, and he is proud of my service. Mm-hmm. He definitely likes talking about that. Our youngest was born at 23 weeks. She was 1 pound, 1 ounce, wasn't supposed to live. And so we call her the honey badger. She's probably the one who would do the best in the military. If she could jump out of planes right now, she'd probably be like, let's go to everyone's school, Dad. So I don't know if any of my kids will do it, but I know that because I serve, they're more likely to. So if they want to venture down that road, I'll definitely do whatever I can to prepare them.
Yeah, I was just curious. Sometimes it's different when talking to somebody else's kid, right? But like, oh, but if it's my kid, I might,
Don't
tell them
want them
something
to do
different,
it.
But
Yeah, I'm a little scared of our government. I don't think it's a good time, but
like,
yeah.
I'm just curious.
So let me bring us back. So when you transition out, what do you go do? What ends up being your?
I got recruited by, so this guy was a recruiter for the oil field, and they made me a field engineer. I worked for a Fortune 500 company. I moved to, so I was in Texas at the time. I moved to Arkansas, and I'm excelling there. The things are great when I'm at work. When I'm off work, I drink. I'm falling apart. I'm having memory problems. I'm having, my sleep is still crap, which is okay because I'm working 100 hours a week, right? They drive you in the ground. But I made a lot of money, right? So in the Army, I didn't make crap. Now I'm making $150,000 a year. I live on a golf course in Arkansas, and my life is pretty good. But I'm miserable. I don't feel like I have purpose. This isn't fulfilling, and I miss my guys. I miss being like I was they hired me as a supervisor, so I have a crew, but it's not the same. It doesn't feel the same, and I miss my old life. I'm definitely want that back and can't get it, and I know it, and that it kills me. So,
and are you doing anything at the time with veterans or service members? You just live in life.
Just living. I didn't even want to talk to other vets or about my service. I avoided the conversation, even when the guys at work sometimes would talk about it, because they didn't know how to tell them, right? Like, I know they assume that when people say I was in the military, I know what they think of, and I tell my guys this, what they think of is you. They think of the guys who went and did what we did, who are getting in gunfights, who are doing all this cool guy stuff, rappelling from helicopters, jumping out of planes. That's really what we did. That was my life. But most of the people in the military don't do that.
Yeah.
Not even close, right? So I don't know how to go tell these guys, and I know the question is going to come up. Did you ever kill anyone, right? And I know because it had come up before. And then, and sometimes, especially if I was drinking in the beginning, I would indulge people. I would tell them dumb stories and, and stuff that had happened. And then eventually I got to where I didn't like myself for telling those stories, so I just wouldn't do it. And then it was like, I'm not ashamed of me doing that. I'm, like I said, the shame and guilt that I have is for my guys getting hurt. So I didn't talk about me doing that stuff, but every once in a while, so I avoided it with like coworkers and stuff. I didn't want to talk about it, and I tried to avoid as much as possible.
So where's life take you? How do we get to where we're at today?
So I got divorced again. So I got remarried to a soldier who I thought would understand. They'd been to Iraq. They could understand what I'd been through. They didn't want to talk about it. Couldn't help me. I didn't know. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know. I was terrified to ask for help. Asking for help had never been fruitful for me. So,
and you probably didn't understand.
I didn't. I thought if there was someone who could go to war and deal with that stuff and come back, it's me, right? I've seen so much stuff when I was a kid. This isn't going to affect me. And I was wrong, right? Because I did have an attachment to these guys. I did care about them. I do love them. They are my brothers. And now here I am seeing them struggle, or, they're killed and their families are trying to, fill this unfillable void. Or, so I decided I needed two things in my life, and that was the ocean and good tacos. And they don't have those in Middle America. So I moved back home, and right before I moved home, I met Fawn. We'd gone to the same high school, but at different times. She graduated before I got there, and her life was different. She went to college. She went to Chico right out of high school, and she was going to be a lawyer and do all these cool things. And then she decided she didn't really like lawyers very much. And so her life kind of went in and out, and she had gotten married and gotten divorced. And then when I met her, I was, basically at rock bottom, right? I lost everything. I'm moving back home, and I don't really have much. Whatever I can fit in this U-Haul, I'm bringing with me, and that's it. But it was a very low point in my life. I didn't feel like I had very much value.
And so during that low point, are you considering suicide?
Yes.
Cross your mind?
Yes, it crossed my mind a few times, but I wasn't sure. It seemed like a coward's way out, but it also seemed like a viable option, and I wasn't really sure how to reconcile that. So sometimes I would just try to table it and this isn't the path you need to go. But then sometimes it would come back, and it would be you need to quit thinking about this and do it, and save everyone else all of this trouble for putting up with you, because I felt like I was a burden to everyone. I felt like a sad sack, like I wasn't being productive. I didn't have purpose. I wasn't doing anything. And now I'm getting a check from the VA. So I start going to the VA, right? And they're giving me all these pills and, telling me essentially I thought I needed this stuff. They're giving them to me. I need this. So I'm taking these pills every day. And then eventually I said, I'm not living my life like this anymore. I'm tired of this.
Yeah, I would imagine. I mean, just to think about your story, you went from an adrenaline filled, and there's no other way to put it, hero status, leader, to you're living on a golf course and working in an oil field. The adrenaline, the challenge, you can never replicate.
No, and I'll probably chase it for my whole life. I still jump out of planes every year. You'll never, like you said, you'll never get that feeling back. Not like of a gunfight. It is the most exhilarating thing you could be in.
But you can get to the purpose, which I'm sure we'll get to.
Right. So when I got home, now we'd already had a suicide. When we first got back from Iraq, we had a suicide within a few months. And
in your team?
Wasn't from my team. It was from my company though.
Oh.
And so that was a little tough, but it felt like it was a kind of a one-off deal, but it wasn't. And they continued to happen more and more. And so right after I get out, right? So one of my guys, while I'm working in the oil field, one of my guys is going back to the same place we were just at with a different unit. Except the guy who's taking him, his squad leader now, is my buddy that I was friends with in AIT, where we learned how to be fisters together, did the initial invasion together. This is going to be his third trip as well. And I for whatever reason, I thought, you don't make it through that twice. So I went to the gym and I hugged Mandracia because I thought I'm never going to see him again. He's going to get killed. And it never dawned on me that it would be Andrade. And Andrade was his squad leader and he got killed on his third deployment. And, he signed up on 9/11 as well. We were 3 days apart. He's born March 11th. And so I know that I have these guys' memories and their legacies like with me, but I don't know how to tell people about it. I don't know how to talk about it. And I have, all these memories and stories, but I'm afraid that if I do talk about it, I'm going to get emotional. Right. And so I came home, I filled my prescriptions when I got back here, and I still have all these thoughts of my friends, whether they were killed or they're hurting now. And I said, I'm not living my life like this. And I just swallowed 3 whole bottles full of pills. And what I had done was I drove over to the ghetto because I said, they don't care. Like, if you're on drugs, no one cares if you're ODing, right? Maybe you'll find a good Samaritan who'll call 911, but it's the ghetto. People don't really care about you so much over there. So that's what I thought. And I went over there and I called Fawn and I said, I can't do this. I'm sorry. I love you. And she listened to me start taking the pills. And I woke up in the hospital and she was there and, still believing that I had something worth redemption in me and value. And I didn't see any of that. And I realized, it's just like waking up on the battlefield when you're not dead. You have to get up and fight again. Someone might try to kill you again. It just might be yourself. So I started doing the work then. I started going to therapy. I started, asking for help. And when I asked for help, because I was terrified before that to ask for help, but when I finally did ask for help, I found people who genuinely wanted to help me, who really wanted to see my quality of life be better than it was. And I don't even know if I really wanted it to be better at that point. I mean, I thought that I wanted it to be better, but was I willing to go through what I was going to have to go through to get to that, right? And in the beginning, God, it was so hard. I mean, I start talking about these guys and it doesn't take very long, right? The floodgates open and I think, why am I here? And he's not. But that purpose does come. And eventually I start helping other guys. And what that leads to is the same thing that it led to every day when we left that gate. We bet on ourselves to win today. Today, I'm going to win the day. And so I start breathing that warrior spirit back into these guys. Hey, listen, dude, it's okay to not be okay, right? You see me cry. Do you want to call me a bad name? Do you want to say that P word that you know is on the tip of your tongue? No, because I'm a warrior. I'm a savage. You've seen me live that life. But that doesn't mean I'm not human. That doesn't mean it didn't affect me to my core, right? Because I really do care about these guys because they really did become my family. And we bonded over this hardship and now it's killing them. They're not enjoying the freedoms they fought for. I'm not enjoying the freedoms I fought for. No more. We have to have a plan of action. We have to stick together, right? I needed you to survive in war. I need you to survive after. It looks different. It feels different. But what I have to be is vulnerable. I have to be willing to say, today was a crappy day, man. But you know what? Bad days only last 24 hours. I have a new canvas every day. And if I let yesterday's bad day affect today, that's my choice, right? Or I could move on and I could have a good day. I could own this day. I could win today.
So are you going out and talking, like as you're growing and healing and figuring this out, are you bringing people along with you, recognizing they need you?
It was my guys at first, just my guys. And then that grew because I had guys who were leaders now in the Army that I had trained. And they said, you need to go talk to my guy. So they would send them to me, tell me what's going on. And it kept growing, man. I'm talking guys who are tier 1 operators who said, listen, man, I've done 6 deployments and I'm not good for another one. And they want me to go back. They're dangling this carrot. We'll promote you. We'll give you retirement. We'll do these things if you just give us one more deployment. And the guy's like, I tried to kill myself 3 months ago. I spent 60 days in a rehab facility and mental health place. And now they're like, all right, let's go. And I'm like, listen, man, you know that you're not good. Advocate for yourself, right? And if you need more help, then I'll bring the cavalry. But I promise you have to stick up for yourself. And teaching these guys to do it now, because they had to essentially figure out how to balance, like, if I want to fight with someone, I don't know where I'm going to stop. I don't know when I'm going to say, I just have to voice my opinion, not I have to be aggressive and intimidating and do all these things. But they were so terrified at their behavior, or their, lashing out at other people because they'd been doing it. And so, I'm telling these guys, listen, dude, I've had road rage incidents. I've abused people verbally and physically. And I did these things because I wasn't good at communicating. So let's work on that. Let's work on communicating. And then let's work on, like, how are we going to go in and be vulnerable with these doctors so that we can really get help? And I'm not talking prescription pills. What can we do? And that grew into Warfighter Overwatch, which is our nonprofit that my wife and I started, and it's focused around mental health. And so we do hikes, right? Because we know that when you reduce cortisol, when you, when we can get your stress down to a level that's manageable, and we can focus on something that makes you feel better about yourself, your self-esteem rises, you feel more capable to do things, whether it's at work or at home, engaged with your kids, right? Because I wasn't engaging with my family. I was isolating myself. I was doing the same thing my dad was doing. And I didn't want to do that. I knew that I could do better. So I had to learn from his mistakes. And I had struggled learning from my own mistakes. So that's kind of where, Warfighter Overwatch came in, and it was our way to stop this suicide epidemic. And we realized it wasn't just veterans doing this, it's police officers and firefighters.
So as you're going through that transition, you're getting therapy yourself. Mm-hmm. So you're learning.
I am.
And then are you also, as you start to see people, like, is the fire start after you start to see someone get healthy? Like that first person, you're like, I'm helping someone.
The first life that I know that, like, I saved or whatever doing this stuff was my driver, Hughes. So he's the one, the RPG got shot at us, rocket propelled grenade, it hit our vehicle, it sliced his cheek open. Hughes was going to kill himself. He went down to Port Aransas in Texas, and he had a boat, and he was going to get on his boat and he was going to go kill himself. But he wrote this manifesto and he sent it to me. But he knows I'm going to do something, right? He didn't send it to me because I was just going to say, cool story, bro. He knows that I'm going to hold him accountable and I'm going to take action. So I did. I sent the cops to go get him, and they did. And they put him in a 72-hour hold, and he was pissed at me, and he didn't talk to me for a couple months. And then he just said, thanks, man. And so he's here today, right? Because of that, because, he did something. So that grew into, listen, if we can help one person, how many people can we help? Well, who knows, right? It's limitless. So let's focus on getting the word out so people can know where to go when they need help, right? And that's the biggest thing. Who do you go talk to when you need help? It can feel overwhelming in the beginning, but if you know where to go and who to talk to, it's less intimidating. You say, okay, what do I need to do, right? And guys like structure, right? Military guys like structure. So if I tell them this is our plan of action, this is what we're going to do, and they feel part of it, they buy in, they have ownership. And then it's accountability, right? So when you leave the military, you don't have someone telling you to go run 3-4 miles a day and, figure it. You have to do it on your own. It takes discipline. Well, first I start telling them you need to have discipline. You got to start doing it. And then I watch them do it. And it's truly amazing to see, number one, the human spirit. But when you see someone who feels like they're at the end of their rope, or they don't know how to figure out a path forward, and then you fast forward 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, it's beautiful. I don't tattoo people, but I own a tattoo shop, right? I bet on myself. This place is special, right? Kinetic Ink is special because it caters to military veterans and first responders. It is a hub. If you feel like you're ostracized at work for talking about this stuff, or you're nervous about bringing up some of those stories, you come in here and we can laugh about this stuff and talk about it all day long, or we can cry about it. I don't really care. Either one, I'll be here, right? And so that grew. And then we started the t-shirt printing company. It was just another thing like to, number one, provide a service for the community and let the community know that, hey, listen, a portion of every tattoo that gets done at Kinetic Ink goes to help fund Warfighter Overwatch. I take guys hiking. I take them fishing. I take them, I pay for them to go to therapy. I pay for their families to go to therapy because it doesn't just affect them, right? There's secondary trauma. So I went to school and I got my degree in marriage and family therapy because I said, how can I help save these guys' career, their marriage, right? And their life. And the answer was, well, first off, we need to have some clinical backing. We need to understand like the mental part of this, the brain science about why they're doing this stuff and how we can mitigate this stuff. Because it's not going to go away. There's going to be issues. But how can you mitigate the impact it has on your life? And even more so, how can you teach the next guy?
So how many people are you helping through Warfighter Overwatch?
I have no idea. We have raised, so we got our nonprofit status in 2020, but we didn't start doing, at that time I was getting our board set up and writing our programs because I didn't know what kind of funding we were going to get, right? I don't get grants. I get stuff from other local business owners and my friends from the community. When the bombing happened in Kabul, 2 weeks before that, I had just posted our first logo on social media. It's the first time we'd posted anything or let anyone know what we were doing. And that was in October of 2021. Since then, we've raised over $700,000.
Wow. And how many people are you working with?
Like my board?
No, you personally.
Oh, I have no idea.
So is it through social media, through emails, through phone calls, through face-to-face? Like, are you just
all of it?
All of it.
Everywhere I go, all the time. I'm talking to people. Either if they don't know, I want to bridge that gap between civilians and military and first responders, right? Because they don't know what they go through. So we have educational stuff. We do workshops for spouses, right? So that they can come in, and we have clinical licensed social workers who come in and say, hey, listen, when he's coming home and he just had a critical incident, this is what his brain's doing, right? And this is why he's like, he doesn't want to talk about taking over the kids or, doing whatever it is you need him to do, picking up his socks, right? So the disconnect that people have between the people who do this profession and, our neighbors, for us, it's good to educate them so it can help, reduce that gap and make that bridge bigger. But then on the flip side, I want people to know that if you're struggling, it's okay. It's okay. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be some freaking, gunslinging soldier to understand that everyone goes through trauma and grief and loss. And that's what really connects us as humans. So if we all go through this thing, then why can't I can be empathetic towards someone who's going through that? And I struggled with empathy. I mean, I thought if you hadn't been through what I'd been through, you couldn't possibly understand. Well, maybe I could help you understand by talking about it and helping you, see what I went through. But even more so, it's not that I went through it. It's that I went through it and now I'm a successful business owner. I'm a good dad. I'm a good husband. I'm engaged with my community, right? I have a huge neck tattoo, but the chief of police for Sacramento is my friend and says hi to me and wants to take a picture with me when she sees me, right? Right. So that part was me initially putting up a wall, right? Maybe being intimidating so it could be harder for people to address me, but I don't have to worry about that because I've never met a stranger. I'll talk to anyone, anywhere.
Yeah, I was going to say, can't judge you book by its cover. Because if you look at you like, okay, a little intimidating, it's got all the tattoos, but then you start to get to know you, not that you're a softie, but there's this soft side to you that I can tell you just pour out, it pours out of you. Which is pretty incredible.
Love wins, right? Soldiers and Marines, they don't fight because of what they hate. They fight for what they love. And it's just a good thing to keep in mind when I talk to these guys and I see they have this internal war. And it's like, listen, man, you love your family. The best thing you could ever do for your family is be better than you were yesterday. That's it. Do that every day.
I love it.
So what are a couple things I've been following you, like I said, on social media, the Warfighter Overwatch. So what are some of the things that you do to like raise fund, or like how can people also contribute?
Okay, so you can donate on our website, warfighter.overwatch.org. There's different donation buttons. So we have a few different fundraising events. We have a golf tournament, our Swing Against Suicide. We have our Remember Ramsey cornhole tournament. He was a ranger as well, came home, became an El Dorado County Sheriff's deputy, just like his daddy. And then he committed suicide and devastated not only his family, but his community. And so we have a cornhole tournament. And then we have our biggest fundraiser of the year is our gala. And it's around Patriots weekend every year because I signed up on 9/11. It's September 7th this year. In fact, I would love it if you guys would come.
Yeah.
It is. So it is a raw, gritty night. People come in there and we're not going to sugarcoat things. We're going to explain it to you the way it is. And we're going to have some powerful speakers. 2 years ago, so my father-in-law, I'll make this real brief. My father-in-law is a battalion fire chief out in San Andreas in Calaveras County. He was at home listening to the radio because that's what they do. And there was a head-on collision like a little over a mile from his house. He drives down there in his truck. He's just got a t-shirt and some pants on. And one vehicle is completely engulfed in flames and that person was dead on arrival. And the other person was stuck in his truck and the steering wheel had pushed onto his legs and he was stuck in there and the engine compartment was on fire. It wasn't on fire inside of the vehicle yet, but it was getting really, really hot. So they're trying to get him out. A CHP officer pulls up and from there we have dash cam and audio recording. So I showed this to 400 people at our gala and they're trying to find a knife to cut the seatbelt of the gentleman who's stuck in there. You see the CHP officer step out of the truck and he's yelling to the few bystanders if they have a knife. He starts patting his head because it's smoldering. The smoke coming from his head indicates that the heat is getting much worse inside of that vehicle. And my father-in-law finds his knife, cuts the seatbelt, goes around the vehicle, drags him out. I think it's within 3 seconds. It happens so fast. The fuel line burns through and the entire vehicle goes up in flames. That guy would have been dead. 3 seconds more, he would have been dead. They wouldn't have been able to save him. And my father-in-law would have likely got burned and hurt. But as society, we're completely okay with him going home and dealing with that all on his own. This guy's dead. This guy's going to the ICU and, go deal with it, have dinner. See you tomorrow. People don't realize what that's like. Okay. So if we can show them that, you could hear 400 people simultaneously gasp when they see this happen. Right. I'm like, listen, this kind of stuff, you don't know which day is going to be like that. So we should be here for them every day, right? And our motto is we don't know them all, but we owe them all. And we stick to that because, these people have been through extraordinary things and they do it for a selfless reason. They do it to make the world a better place and for the rest of us. So we do owe them. And this is kind of my way of giving back. But yeah, the gala is probably one of the most amazing nights of my year. And it has been the most rewarding, I think, evening each year when it comes. It reminds me that this is a great endeavor. We're doing a lot of good.
We'll absolutely be there. So amazing story. I know we only scratched the surface. We'll probably do this for 5 hours. Yeah. Anything that you want to leave people with?
What's inside of you is greater than what's in front of you. It doesn't matter what adversity you face, you can overcome it. I promise.